Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Last Wrestling Podcast, because if I have a wrestling podcast, everybody else in the world does too, and the concept is officially dead. It has been said by writers far more successful than myself that all drama begins with two things: objective and obstacle. The protagonist of the story wants something, and someone or something is preventing them from getting it. From this seed grows desire. From desire grows motivation. From incompatible motivations comes conflict, and from conflict comes drama, and from drama comes the dark side. The objective can be anything: the love of another, money, accomplishment, arrival at a desired location, achievement of a desired status. By the same token, the obstacle can be anything, but obstacles are generally classified into one of three great conflicts: man versus man, man versus nature, and man versus self. Obviously, man here is used to mean human. Whatever shape the obstacle takes, its function in the narrative is the same: make things harder for the hero. Applying this basic truism of storytelling to professional wrestling, the function of the heel, or rudo, is to act as the obstacle for the babyface, or technico. Probably the most basic example is hero wants to be champion, villain wants to stop them from becoming champion by retaining said championship. Of course, that works equally well in reverse. Hero wishes to remain champion, villain wants to take the title away from them. Think of these as the Flair model and the Hogan model, respectively. Or the NWA model, WWF model, respectively. A heel can be considered an active antagonist if they represent a significant threat to the protagonist, up to and including if they actually succeed in denying the protagonist their objective. This is where pro wrestling's serialized nature is important. Sometimes it's okay for the bad guys to win. That's one way of looking at the face-heel dynamic from a fully in-story perspective. A kayfabe paradigm, if you will. But there's another way of looking at this. What if the babyface isn't the protagonist of the story? What if we are? One of the unique aspects of professional wrestling is that it is an interactive art form. The wrestlers, and at a more meta level the bookers/writers, interact with the audience in a variety of ways to enhance the drama or comedy of the story. And no, Team Cornette, I don't mean through newfangled social media. I mean through good old-fashioned in-ring storytelling. We, the fans, want something. We want, if the bookers are doing their job, to see the babyface victorious and the heel defeated. However, at a broader level, we as wrestling fans want to see a good wrestling show. I know that sounds obvious, but that's how a successful heel stands out as an antagonist in 2020. They make sure we don't get what we want. Let's take a look at some effective and ineffective villains in wrestling and see if I can illustrate my point. Effective. Kenta. I have never seen, heard, or felt as much visceral hatred from any wrestling crowd as when Kenta interrupted Naito Tetsuya's victory celebration at the end of Night 2 of Wrestle Kingdom 14. The only Wrestle Kingdom too big for one night. Thankfully, they didn't actually say that. Of note is that this hatred came from a Japanese crowd, a group famous for being quiet and respectful during the shows, to the point of unnerving foreign talent not used to it. In the weeks between Wrestle Kingdom and the coronavirus-caused suspension of the promotion, Kenta became the single most hated villain in at least the last 10 years of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Why? Because he took something away from us. Naito has been the guy in NJPW for years. I don't think it's hyperbolic to describe the reactions he gets as Stone Cold-esque. After his failure at Wrestle Kingdom 12, fans had been traveling on this journey from the bottom of the barrel to double gold in the main event of the biggest show of the year. We wanted to see Naito holding both belts high in the air. We wanted to see him showered in streamers, and we wanted to join in the roll call of Los Ingobernables de Japón. And just when we finally got what we wanted, in mid-sentence, it was gone, and we hate Kenta for doing that. Ineffective. Chris Jericho. specifically the modern AEW of Chris Jericho, alternatively known as Le Champion, which I think that means the mushroom, but oh, whatever. I'm hardly the first to point this out, but if they are singing your entrance music, it's because they like you. If they like you, you are not a heel. Beyond that, if you're put into long segments that are meant to make people laugh, you are not a heel. What has Chris Jericho taken away from the fans? An Adam Page title run? A month of Dustin Rhodes matches? Jon Moxley not looking like a disgruntled pirate? This problem rose to its zenith the week after AEW Revolution, when someone brought a sign to hold up during the Jericho sing-along segment that read, "Don't sing, he's a heel." Well, sorry, random guy, but no, he isn't. Now, it's easy to complain, but it's better to offer solutions. So here's how I would retweak the current Jericho heel run to actually make him a little more villainous under this paradigm of taking away what the fans want. Once AEW gets in front of an actual audience again, the next time Jericho makes his entrance, right before the lyrics of the song kick in, it needs to cut to something completely different, instrumental, and preferably annoying. Some kind of atonal dubstep or polka music or something. This will deprive the fans of the opportunity to sing along with Jericho. Will that fix everything wrong with Jericho's heel run? No. He's too funny by half, but this will stem the majority of the bleeding. Effective. The Miz. I know WWE has been trying to portray Miz as a good guy lately, but we're going to ignore that because it's stupid. Miz is one of the best villains in the last 10 years of WWE, not only because he exudes smarm like no one else and is a great talker by modern-day WWE standards, but most importantly because he sucks. Specifically, the fact that he is perceived as being a weak in-ring performer. His moves look less than realistic, and he is a bit dull to watch. He takes away what we want to see, a good match. Anytime someone the fans perceive as being a great wrestler, like a Daniel Bryan or a Cesaro, has to wrestle The Miz, we are automatically deprived of a good match, because those guys that we like, or that we perceive as being good wrestlers, would look better if they were matched up with another good wrestler. Instant engagement from the fans. Now, in truth, Miz does make an excellent argument when he points out that his softer style grants him longevity and a lower risk of injury, but that's reality, and we're talking in-universe here. Miz is not only a total package as a heel, but his lack of work rate gives him the secret ingredient to legitimately pissing off the fans, and I mean that as the highest of compliments. Ineffective. Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan is one of the most versatile wrestlers in the last 20 years. He has been a great villain in the past, but I'm referring to his run as the planet's champion. First of all, this was not a villainous character. Saving the planet is literally a good guy's mission statement. On top of that, he created, or was given, the best custom belt to come out of WWE since the $1 Million Championship. Fight me. I don't care. This was the best belt they've come up with in years. Not a bad guy. In characteristic fashion, Bryan tried to make chicken salad out of chicken something else. Possibly taking inspiration from CM Punk's straight edge means I'm better than you character, he tried to portray himself as an overbearing, in-your-face jerk who used his environmentalism as a screen for being a jackass. It was entertaining, but in the end, it didn't engender any real ire from the fans. I think there were two reasons for this. First, Vince sucked all the heat away like the cold, dark vacuum of space. The moment the recycling symbol became the logo of an antagonist, everyone watching knew that this was a 70-plus-year-old man venting his frustrations on national television, and that actually made us feel sorry for his forced mouthpiece. Second, Bryan had long ago passed what I call the flare point. There comes a point in every successful wrestler's career where they've been around so long and become so respected as a legend that nobody wants to boo them, even if they are best known for their work on the dark side of the Force. Named after the Nature Boy, the ultimate example of the greatest villain in history of wrestling that nobody will ever boo again. So, how do you make Bryan a functional antagonist? Simple, don't. But if you must, make him a coward. This can be logically achieved as the result of his accumulating injuries. He starts refusing to go at full speed, and eventually starts ducking matches and using Larry Zbyszko-style stalling tactics out of fear of getting hurt. This deprives the fans of getting to see a good Daniel Bryan match. Instant heat because the Daniel Bryan we know has been taken away. Speaking of which, effective! Dasher Hatfield. If you've been following my Chikara no Rekshi videos, you've seen the progression of Dasher Hatfield from beloved personification of sportsmanship and fair play to a child-abusing cheater. This has gotten a genuine reaction out of both me and the live Chikara audience. Not only because the Chikarmi has a good habit of playing along with the story being told, but because we know for a fact that Dasher has it in him to be better than he currently is. The old-timey king of swing has been taken away from us, and we will never get him back. Not as he was, at any rate. The fact that he's become the archetypal bad sports dad who can never be satisfied no matter how good his child is at their shared sport only makes it worse. The fact that they were able to work in a PG child abuse storyline on top of a complete reversal and perversion of a character's core values, brought about by good old-fashioned dragon's greed, the lust for gold overriding your moral code, make Dasher Hatfield one of the best heels in wrestling today. Ineffective. AJ Styles. As of this writing, AJ Styles is in a program with The Undertaker, where he is the designated baddie. This is completely understandable, as The Undertaker is another wrestler who is years past the flare point. Unfortunately, AJ, or more accurately the writers putting all the words in his mouth, has chosen the dastardly and devious tactic of telling the complete and honest truth. Most of AJ's rather repetitive promos have focused on things like The Undertaker looking awkward during a charity event, being bossed around by his wife, and just not being the wrestler he used to be. While those are insults, I suppose, they're also true. The Undertaker in a pool with that tiger and that weird-looking braided rat tail really did look awkward as hell. And just like every married man, I should say, he gets bossed around by his wife occasionally. Though I would phrase it more as he tends to stick up for his wife, but I am a hopeless romantic, so we'll just go with that. Lastly, and most importantly, the last few Undertaker matches have been not up to his usual standard. I get what the idea is supposed to be here, at least if I'm not giving WWE too much credit. Take away the mystique and the aura of The Undertaker in the build, and have the Dark Wizard of the Squared Circle get his own back in a studio lot, or wherever they're going to film whatever the hell a Boneyard match turns out to be. Problem is, he's right! Everything AJ is saying is something wrestling fans are well aware of, even though we don't necessarily like it. How do you fix this? Well, I think it's pretty simple. Have AJ talk a lot of trash about The Undertaker of old. Talk about how the idea of a wrestling Undertaker is a dumb 90s gimmick right up there with a wrestling garbage man. Talk about how his biker phase was just a midlife crisis played out on television. Talk about how his WrestleMania streak wasn't that big of a deal. After all, he only beat Giant Gonzalez by DQ. As if that somehow invalidates his matches with HBK, Triple H, and CM Punk somehow. AJ can still try and take away the legend of The Undertaker, but this time we know he's lying to try and deliberately piss the dead man off and cause him to make a mistake in their match, or possibly to goad him into accepting a boneyard match which would favor AJ Styles in some fashion, preferably. Okay, this isn't really well written. Either way, at least this version, he's either twisting the truth or flat out lying, like a bad guy would do. Because bad guys do bad things. I shouldn't have to say this. Well, that's a brief look into the nature of villainy in the world of professional wrestling. Can you think of any other examples of properly effective or thoroughly rubbish antagonists in this weird form of combat theater we all love? Leave them down in the comments below. This weekend on the Animated Wrestling League, it's the go-home show for Sakuramania Wrestle Genesis, and next week on Chikara no Rekshi, it's time for the Season 20 Baseball Tour. Until then, catchphrase sign-off.